Yo, what's up guys? Teacher Paul here, and today we have a coffee request. If you want to request a video, click over here or go on to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description, and thank you so much. So this is going to be very interesting because I am an English teacher and we are going to learn a little bit about Old Norse. The title of this video is Can Norwegian, Danish, and Icelandic Speakers Understand It? This is from a channel called Echolinguist, and the link is in the description for you guys to go check it out if you want to watch it without my reaction. And this video was requested by Cecilia. Cecilia says, "Hi Paul, so I just found a very interesting video about the Old Norse language and whether a Dane, Norwegian, and Icelander was able to understand it. It gave some really great insight into the structure of our modern languages and how it is or how it has evolved over the past 800 years. So let's check this out, guys. And a shout out to everyone who's watching from Nordic countries. This is my Nordic channel, so consider subscribing and join us on Discord. The link is in the description as well. Let's go.
Velkomin all saman til netarasar heimálfræðings Norberts Fjers Byggja. Ek heitum Jackson Crawford. Og netros minni tala ek norrønt mál og innsigildu.
Is he American?
Góða kvæði.
Jackson Crawford.
Thor, Loka og öðrum Åsum. Í dag mun ek mæla norrønu málið í Norðurlöndum í vikingaöld og hver munum finna hversu mikið núverandi menn frá Íslandi, Danaveldi og Noregi fá þetta eldri málið skilið. All mál bregðast jafnvel íslenska en rást ómu endurómar í rástum barna og.
Wow, this is so cool. Right now, everybody watching from Nordic countries, also pay close attention and let me know if you can understand it as well, because this is so cool. And you can see the subtitles up there. So even though there are subtitles here for me to understand, in any point of this video, you can rewind, close your eyes and try to understand, or try to understand as much as you can and then rewind to read the subtitles and see if you got it. But let me know how much % you could understand from this.
Nú heyrum hverjir þessir aðrir gestir eru og hvaðan þeir koma frá.
Hej, jeg hedder Michael, og jeg bliver ofte kaldt for Mik. Jeg underviser i dansk online, og jeg har også en kanal på YouTube, som hedder Mix Languages, hvor jeg har forskellige videoer med det danske sprog, udtale, grammatik og andre ting.
Komið sæl, Óskar Bragi heiti ég og kenni íslensku á netinu. Ég með YouTube-rás og þekktur sem Speak Viking á netinu og ég mjög spenntur að vera hér í dag.
Først tar jeg på Tromsø-dialekt. Hei, jeg heter Torleif, og jeg en norsklærer online. Og jeg også har en YouTube-kanal som Norwegian Square.
Norwegian
som
Square.
Jeg underviser i. Og det dette jeg gjør til daglig, og ganske morsomt. Dette min dialekt, som jeg kan bruke. Men jeg kan snakke på bokmål, som litt enklere å forstå for folk. Så dette kan jeg også snakke.
He looks like he's the most nervous one out of the bunch. When he was listening to the instructor, he was kind of like, oh, what have I gotten myself into? But this is a very nice structured video. We're going to start now.
Depends on who you're talking to, because I'm a Nynorsk guy.
Nynorsk is not the same as Tromsø dialect. So.
Oh, I know, but I like dialects, so it's not so crazy. So for more than a decade at various universities in the US, I've been teaching Old Norse, the medieval language of Scandinavia, in addition to modern Scandinavian languages. And the old language of Scandinavia, of course, has changed over time in different ways in different parts of Scandinavia. In some respects less in Iceland than in other countries. What I'm going to do here is read some Old Norse sentences in their reconstructed pronunciation from about the 1200s AD, and we're going to see how much of that is understandable to a modern speaker of Icelandic, Norwegian, or Danish. I'll be reading 5 sentences in Old Norse, again with reconstructed 1200s pronunciation. And first, I will simply read the sentence out loud, and each of the modern Scandinavian language speakers will have a chance to tell us what they hear in it. And then I will also show it to them written so that they may get some extra cues from the written language as well. Okay.
I have a quick question. He's calling it Scandinavian languages, right? Scandinavia, but isn't Iceland not part of Scandinavia? Well, just throwing it out there.
Snjór fell ein dag I skogen. Are we all good?
This just sounded super easy, and
Yeah.
They're
since I
Nordic,
didn't understand
right?
anything, that's
not
supposed to be good
Scandinavian.
because I didn't understand much of your introduction. So
So it's supposed to start super easy. All right, now let's see that written down. Snjór fell ein dag I skogen. Okay, everybody good? Okay, the dice say Torleif first.
First, I thought it was Norbert. Norbert fell I skogen, but it's not him. Okay, yeah, that is.
Do you guys know what that is?
fell I skogen.
Snow is falling a
So
day.
I think that is one person went one day in the woods.
So where do you get one person?
I don't know what Norbert is, to be honest. Never heard of it. I have no clue.
Well, one day I got correct.
There are some dialects in Norway and in older Nynorsk where this word actually occurs more or less in that form. Sometimes in Western Norway, there's dialects where they say snu for sni. The dice say mik next. So what did you hear?
I heard sne falt en dag I skoven, which translates into snow fell one day in the forest.
Whoa!
We wouldn't have the same grammatical structure
Did I
in
get it
modern
right?
Danish. We would have a different syntax. Or we could probably say sne and the snow fell one day. That would probably help it. And that's what I heard in the first listening and also in the writing. It just confirmed what I had heard.
Yep. All right, and then Oscar?
Yeah, basically the same thing that Mick just said. Snow fell one day in the forest is exactly what I heard, and it's written a bit more poetic than you might hear it in the spoken everyday Icelandic. But yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, I don't speak any Nordic language, and I said snow fell one day. I didn't know that was a forest, but well, I guess I was going through out of what English might sound like, and English is it's derived from Old Norse, so it might sound similar. But skoginum, I would never understand that as a forest.
And basically the written form is almost the same, minus that the past tense of fell now has a long vowel, and then you have some pronunciation differences like the two L's becoming like.
Snjór fjall einn dag I skoginum.
Yeah, so it's really a pronunciation difference more than a written difference.
That's
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear the second sentence. Margir fuglar bjöggu I þessum skógi.
Can we hear it again, please?
Margir fuglar bjöggu I þessum skógi.
Yeah, I don't know any of that.
The Icelander's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine, but I don't. I'm lost, totally.
Okay, do you want to see it written now?
Please.
Margir fuglar bjöggu I þessum skógi.
Okay, let's see if we can get that. Margir fuglar bjöggu I þessum skógi. Oh man, I can't figure out any of these words. Maybe Margir is a month, March. Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody know? Can anybody take a guess?
You ready to tell me what you heard? Because the dice say you're first, Mick.
Okay, right. So this is not as number one. I'm pretty lost now. I didn't understand anything in the saying in the spoken version, and the written one Well, I would say fugler is fugle in Danish, which is birds. Byggu must be to build, bygger, but maybe I'm totally wrong here.
It's from the same root, but in modern Danish, this would be bode.
That's good. Bor.
Bode.
Oh, guys, don't give spoilers if you've
They
seen
live.
it.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So margir, I have no idea. So the birds live in skogi is the skov again, which is the forest, I guess. Fessum, I have no idea about that word.
Okay, Trolle.
So what I thought it was Marger hyglar jorgar I Sessenskog. It was not correct. It was said Marger fuglar bjuggu I Bessenskog. And as Mick said, fuglar means fugl, this bird. So Marger, I'm curious, maybe it means many birds. And bjuggu, I'm thinking maybe that is they're yelling, they're chirping or something in the Bessum.
They're nesting?
I'm just thinking maybe that is nice forest. It's probably wrong. So I said many birds yell in the nice forest, I think.
So keep in mind in Old Norse or in Icelandic, that letter that looks like the B and P together, thorn, is the th sound like an English think.
Ah, okay.
So Fessum. And then Oscar.
Margir fuglar bjuggu í þessum skógi, and I understood it as you said it, Jackson. Many birds lived in this forest.
Yeah. So again, actually, I'm pretty sure the written form is identical in modern Icelandic. So what we
That's
have
pretty
here that's
cool.
different in Norwegian and Danish
If you're from
is the root
Iceland,
word
let me
for
know.
many in Old Norse is mark, which remains in Icelandic, but then on the continent is replaced by the root from Low German mang, right? So this is modern mange fuglar. And then the verb for to dwell in, to live, bua, in the languages on the continent has a reformed past tense. So bjuggu is the past plural third person in Old Norse and modern Icelandic, but then in forgive my terrible accent in Danish, but in Danish it's bode, and then in modern Norwegian bude, buda, depending on dialect. And then also the word for this has many different inflectional forms in Old Norse or Icelandic. So thessum is the dative masculine singular in this instance, whereas in modern Norwegian and Danish, in the singular, this just has one form, which is from the old masculine accusative singular, dena. So there's all familiar roots, more or less, but with some very different forms from those roots in modern Norwegian and Danish.
And fessum, I guess, fessum is probably related to this in English, I guess.
Yeah, well, and of course the plural disse.
Disse in Danish, yes, of course.
Yeah. But that root thes can appear in the singular in Old Norse, unlike in modern Norwegian and Danish.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now for
That
number
is
3,
absolutely
which is a longer
amazing.
sentence.
Let me just check on chat. How are you guys doing? You guys getting along? Are you guys managing to understand? Without spelling much, I can tell you I understand. I've seen this a while ago. Oh, you guys seen this video? My fellow Norwegian, there should have done a little better. He looks young. He looks like he was nervous, you know. I can catch a few words here and there. Okay, so the chat is actually doing well as well. I'm the one who's suffering here because, you know, it's so far from English. The first one was okay. The second one, you know, getting a bit harder. Let's see, the third one is getting even harder now. Let's see.
I því hæsta tre í skógun byggðu tver meisingar hreiðar sitt.
Now that sounds elvish.
Can you repeat, please?
I því hæsta tre í skógunum byggðu tver meisingar hreiðar sitt.
Oh, okay, wait. Something about 3 messengers also in the forest. I understood messenger.
Do you want to see it written?
Please.
All right. I Því hæsta tré í skógun byggðu tver messingar hreiðar sitt. Let me roll my dice. Well, the dice say that you're first, Mick.
Okay, so again, the first time I was lost, but I heard the word skogum, I cannot pronounce it correctly.
It's
which
forest
is gone.
again.
We had it the same form, the same grammatical form in the first example, I think. Skogenum. Bygda, they build, right? So something in the forest somebody built. Hreder sit. Right, I'm aware that in Danish the possessive pronoun would be in the beginning. Sin. Rede, which is the nest of the bird. So it's and okay, right. Sorry, I was talking about what I heard. When I only heard the skogunum and the hesta tre. I had no idea. Hest is horse, but makes no sense. So horse doesn't kind of make any sense. But then I saw it written, and then I figured, okay, reder. First, I had actually heard
It's a raider.
trader, and
I heard something about 3 messengers raid the location, maybe. Sit, maybe location. I don't know why I'm saying that, but it reminds me of Sichu, which is another language, but it means place or location. E, the, hesta, it kind of feels like I have or something. I don't know. I'm gonna let the experts do it.
then I thought about Swedish. I think they call trädgård, which is the garden in Swedish. So I thought about they built their garden. But now I say reder, which must be the nest, right?
Yeah.
Tver
Okay,
must be 2
raider is a nest.
or 3. And 2. And this messinga is a bird. I have. I think there is some bird in Danish that has this a similar name, but I've forgotten the word of it. And hesta, I have no idea. 3 is must be 2 again, right? It makes sense to have 2 trees in the forest where this bird built their nest. No.
No, 2 is the TV root. Thornv is different. But you're absolutely right about nest. So that actually shows a very regular change from Old Norse into Danish, where HR just becomes R, so like ring becomes ring, and then EI becomes just E, right? Like stain the stem. Yeah, so that's a very regular. So yeah, exactly.
This is very
Okay,
interesting.
Oscar?
Í því hæsta tré í skóginum byggðu 2 messingar hreiður sitt.
Yeah. So a couple things I was wondering about.
Nothing
wanted
changed?
to confer with you about with modern Icelandic. I think in modern Icelandic I probably would have said hæsta trénu, or would you say it this way?
Would you say í því hæsta trénu?
No, not því, í hæsta trénu. Yeah.
Já.
So what the reason I didn't do it that way in Old Norse is that the article I find is less often used, and they often revert to the that forms when it's followed by some qualifying statement or like a relative clause. So it just seemed more natural to me a little bit in Old Norse. Another thing that I thought would be kind of different is you'd probably have the article before sits, you'd like hreiðrid sit. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think those are very good observations. If you were to say this sentence in modern day Icelandic, you would say something like Í hæsta trénu í skóginum byggðu 2 messingar hreiðrið sitt.
Icelandic is basically Old Norse,
word,
but modern.
I think in modern Icelandic this is titur. Not, or does anyone say mesingar anymore?
I'm not good enough with birds to know that, but I think something.
Any bird
like
expert?
This, to me, sounds a little bit familiar, like something that I might have come across once or twice. But what did you just say now, Jackson?
I think so the modern Icelandic word I know for this bird is tita, not mesingar.
Tita.
But I'm not sure they exist in Iceland. I think it's a.
So you're telling me that the name of the bird in English is TITS? I'm not even gonna say it out loud, so that I don't get censored by YouTube, because it's been very sensitive nowadays. That is very interesting, though. You know, calling a bird that.
Continental bird, so I don't know.
I mean, that kind of makes sense to me, because when I hear that name, both those names, those are not birds that kind of pop up in my, wheelhouse of birds in Icelandic. But then again, I'm not a big bird enthusiast. But
I have the bird now. Now I have it. Now it came to me the word in Danish for this bird.
Google.
Yeah, same root.
Say
It
it.
should be the same root in Danish.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's kind of similar, but it's a bit longer. Meise.
Yeah, it's the same word.
Mice.
Okay, Torlep.
Meisinger.
I 3 hektar trä i skogen dykte trär messer går träber siv. Sit, but when I saw there, it's a bit different. I think Mick had a very good observation on the bigur, which obviously is to build. But I thought it was I have to cut the tree in the forest, but losing the hair, because messing it is close to missing.
I see.
Mister. I thought it was Mister. Maybe he lost his hair, which was kind of weird.
Okay, I see.
We still haven't figured out what the word hesta means. I still don't know it.
Hesta.
what
It's not a word in Danish.
It's highest.
Highest tree.
Highest. Yeah.
Højeste. Ah.
So in Old Norse
Okay.
and then still in modern Icelandic, the word for high is hor, modern Icelandic haur. And so this is the superlative, the highest. But then this is another case where the continental languages have borrowed a Low German word, hug or hui. So that's another case of vocabulary replacement.
This is amazing. It's amazing to learn about how languages were formed, and how it used to be in the past and how it is now. So it's pretty cool. These type of videos are very, very well made. I like that. It's very interesting. It's very hard to also understand when you're a foreigner and you don't speak any of those languages. But it's interesting to see how they break it down and try to understand, and how it is similar to different languages from like Nordic languages. So it's very nice. It's very nice to see this. And it feels like these guys are like they understand very well what's going on, like how this became, like he was talking about the highest, and then he breaks down every single part of it. It's very nice to understand that. But what I was going to say is that I was going to ask, why are they only talking about forest? But then again, if you think about it, back then they only had forests. Like everywhere you look, it was just forests, no cities and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why the main topic here is the forest.
But then, yeah,
But still similar, right? It's still related totally. Like,
yeah, it's from the
related, I guess. I don't know if that's the same root
ultimately
as
from the same root. And then the bird word, yeah, that should be in what would that Danish Meise?
En meise, to meiser.
Yeah,
Mijse.
Mice.
yeah. And then I think it's the same roughly in Norwegian, maybe without the at the end.
Yeah, it might be. I'm not good with birds either.
Okay.
So, like Oscar, I don't know.
Well, we are also having ornithological speculations. Okay. In the highest
What
tree in
was
the
that?
forest, 2 titmice built their nest. I had to think about the English word for the bird.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. He didn't want to say the English word. So
Okay. In the highest tree in the forest, 2 titmice built their nest. I had to think about the English word for the bird. so like, first I'm like, chickadee, wait, no, that's the North American bird. Titmice. And then I thought, does that sound wrong?
it does. Yes, it does sound wrong.
Titmice. So it is called titmouse.
Yeah, that's it. It's a European, I don't know, man. It's a European word. Bird.
Interesting bird.
All right, here's the 4th sentence. En ådren stormen kom, stal krocka their egg.
Okay, so late egg is
Again,
probably
please.
egg.
En óðren stormren kom, stal króka þeirra egg.
Their egg.
The first part I am lost, but I have the last part. I have
Their egg.
a bit of a sense out of it at least. But the first part is kind of. Could you say it again, please?
En óðren stormren kom, stal króka þeirra egg.
Okay, there's something about cracking the egg. So Hovard thinks it's crow, and I think it's crack. I think the something is cracking their egg. Something is cracking the egg.
I have to see it written.
Okay, let us see it written. En óðren stormren kom, stal króka þeirra egg.
I feel like this means a cold and stormy night. No. This means like there's a storm coming, and stal kraka their egg. It will crack their egg. So, I don't know.
Theirra egg. I think egg comes from the Vikings, isn't? Is it from?
What?
I think
So in yeah, it's an
What type of comment is that? These eggs come from the Vikings.
Old Norse word that is borrowed into English. Are we ready to go?
it's just a small sack to translate.
We're still in the bird. I would say we're still in the bird universe, but still it's a bit.
It's a lot of birds.
Does kraka mean
I have a
steel?
clue about the kråka. I think I know what that is.
Feeling ready?
Same in Norwegian.
Oscar?
En áður en stormurinn kom, stal kráka þeirra egg.
Thera really means
Come on,
there.
it's the same language.
Yeah, it's the same language.
So
Can I just, Jackson, can I paraphrase into how I would say it in modern day
sure, of
Iceland?
course, yeah.
Thanks. So, en áður en stormurinn kom, stal kráka eggi þeirra.
Yeah, I would also have reversed that. But I did it both ways in these sentences. So in sentence 3, I had the noun before the possessive, and then in this one, I flipped them. Because in Old Norse, there isn't the same consistency, right? Modern Icelandic and then modern Norwegian dialects have really favored noun plus possessor. Modern Danish and Swedish really favor possessor plus noun, but then in Old Norse, it just seems to be kind of
So
random.
everybody
So I
agrees
just
that
decided to kind of mix.
kraka means
Yeah, I mean,
crow?
Once again, the written form with a
I'm
couple
still thinking
changes,
kraka
a
means
U
crack.
that will be added between the M and the R there. Yeah, exactly. Is very similar. Pronunciation, very similar, minus some vowels especially, and then a couple places where double consonants.
And stal means
next
steel.
Cheering.
Well, this is I don't know. This is part of what we're looking at. It's not a game. Nobody wins.
Why didn't they get a Swede in there? Like, I mean, I understand why they took someone from Iceland because it's the same language, but they could have gotten at least 2 more people. One from, they could have gotten 6 people. One from Sweden, one from Finland. So because it's Nordic, right? If they were going for Scandinavia, they should have dropped the Iceland and put Sweden in there. But if they're going for Nordic, then they could have added Sweden, and then Finland, and then Greenland. Yeah. Is there a language? Do they speak Green? What language do they speak in Greenland? It's not Danish, is it?
Wins
Yeah.
anything except nobody wins anything except hearing my terrible accent in Icelandic, Danish, and Norwegian.
It's a good accent. It's a good accent, Jackson.
Thank you.
But it sounds very similar to Icelandic. I would say. I wouldn't be able to keep them apart. These 2 languages. I would not.
It's sometimes hard for me because I do have to keep them apart for some purposes. Mick?
So right. So okay. So now we just saw how similar these 2 languages are, Icelandic and Old Norse. I am lost here.
I thought he was going to say now
the
it's
last part
easier.
is their eggs. There's egg, I would say. I would say the word after the comma stal is stjal. It's stole. That's how I see it. Somebody stole, some bird stole their eggs. Kråka could be krav, a crow, the bird crow. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And as I said from the beginning, the first part, right, it would have to be something like a rainy, stormy day or something, maybe. But I have no idea. I cannot make anything out of these words.
You're correct in seeing storm in it.
Yeah, so it feels like it was a cold and stormy night. No. Kom is came, right? So when the storm came, the crows stole their eggs. But who is their eggs? Yeah, but I still think kraka is like crack or something. I don't know.
Okay.
And then Trolla?
Så I said, in orden torden komt stål krocka deres egg orden stormen. Yeah, but I see now, I think that one year a storm came and the crow stole their eggs. I don't know, the data. Yeah, the krocka, yeah, that's the crow. Oh,
Yeah.
I think that's year. So.
But how would the storm steal
you
the
two are
egg?
closer than you think you are. Yeah. So the last half was pretty understandable, right? A crow stole their egg or their eggs. So Theira, of course, in some Norwegian dialects and in Nynorsk, Deira is from that, right? Deres in Bokmål.
Okay, so
So
one year a stormtrooper came and stole the crow's eggs. That's my final answer.
but one thing that's happened is we have two words, two meanings in a word that's spelled the same way in Old Norse and Icelandic, which is N. So the first N would be in Danish or Swedish men, right? But,
Whoa.
right? And then the second N is than, right? Which in Norwegian is ENN, right? And then in Danish, I think it's END, right? For than. So before
For
than,
the comparative, comparative form, like more
so
than.
yeah, so it's but earlier than, so before the storm came.
Ooh.
A crow stole their egg or their eggs. Yeah.
Could you
Whose
pronounce it
eggs?
once again, please, Jackson?
Yeah. In ådren stormen kom, stal krokka their egg. And one thing that I'm doing, by the way, that's different from modern Icelandic is I'm not pronouncing a vowel between the M and R and the ed and R, especially if there's a vowel behind it. I'm kind of letting those syllables.
Like, yeah. It's hard to understand. Like, we did understand, I did understand their egg from the get-go. And I did understand storm, so yeah. But those are easy ones.
I'm not making
'Cause
a
it
distinct
sounds
syllable,
English.
which in earlier Old Norse we would expect it not to be. Sometimes hard to do, but it's easier for me to do if there's a vowel after it.
So the translation is, but before the storm came, the crows stole their eggs.
Yeah, a crow.
And how
stole
is that second word? That second word is interesting. How is that before?
So it's of course lost in the modern Scandinavian languages on the continent, as far as I know.
We have the word innen.
But
I don't know if that's related.
But older, it's related to English ear. If you've ever seen that in poetry, ERE, it's distantly related to the English word early. But yeah, it's lost. Of course, you know, för en would be the continental form now.
Áður en, those are kind of like, they're kind of locked in. Áður en, like together they make sense as
It is really
but
interesting.
before, and just before, áður en, before, and it's one of those things that it's very hard to try to make sense of it if you're trying to explain it through English. But I think what you said, Jackson, just now made sense.
Yeah, I'm just translating it as but before. Okay, so sentence 5. Vinur með vangi hefur þann óvin flugur.
Again, please.
Vinur með vangi Hefur þann óvin flyger.
I have to
form,
read
please.
it.
I'm
All
lost.
right. Let us see it written.
Oscar's just sitting there. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
this,
What's the
okay.
problem?
Okay.
fair.
Vinner med vangi hefur.
Okay. Vinner med vengi hefir van ovin flyger. I got the flyer. I think this than could be like a comparison. Like med, or is that med? Oh man, I don't know. Honestly, like I think there is a comparison. Like I like this rather than that. I don't know.
Þann óvin flyger. So as you might be able to tell, I was looking at birds when Norbert told me I needed to write 5 sentences. And I thought I would try to end it on kind of a proverbial observation.
Okay,
Does it
proverbial.
contain a bird? I don't see any bird here. If you're trying to say that.
No, but he's talking about flying.
I mean, it's still related to the bird story, but there's not a bird,
Okay.
there's not a word for bird.
Okay, good. Okay.
Oh, it's okay. It's better to have like something than it flying. Do you know that phrase? It's better. What is the wind with the weather makes you fly higher? I think it's something. It's better than. It's better to have like a. I don't know, like a. You know that one, like. It's better to have one than two flying or something like that. I don't know. I can't even think of the English proverb. Friends with wings has something that flies. What?
Yeah. Okay, that's the only word I actually understand.
I mean, Norbert, if you'll let me point one thing out.
Yeah.
Little tip on word forms. Of course, you notice in some of these previous sentences, there's a lot of words in Old Norse that ended in R that isn't there in Norwegian or Danish. So stormer, storm, snjor, snö, snö. That's another one. Hreiður versus Danish leather.
Better one bird in the hand than two flying? Or I don't know. What is the expression?
So the same thing with like vinner.
Could you give some more hints, please?
Norbert, what do you think?
No, no more hints.
No. Okay, no more hints. Even that hint is a little bit oblique because the vowel wouldn't necessarily help you in modern Norwegian or Danish.
Again, it's the same. It's the same. Oh man, this is crazy, and it's just so far away from anything I know. And I also speak Swedish pretty well. I understand Norwegian and stuff, and I'm just lost, Except for you, good.
All of the pieces are there in Danish.
Yeah. Med, second word, I guess. But
Okay, so Oscar, you just put in yours.
Vinur með vangi hefur þann óvin flýgur.
It's the same language. Come on. That's cheating.
Of course, differences in spelling. We have the U-R instead of just the R after consonants. One thing I'll point out that is, I think, a contrast to modern Icelandic again is another syntactic thing where if you have a relative clause, right, flyger in Old Norse, or in modern Icelandic, sem flyger, that's usually preceded by the noun with a form of that on it. So in modern Icelandic, I think I would just say oven sem flyger, right?
Já.
So that's a syntactic difference. But other than that, and the spellings, anything you want to comment on?
It's the same
So
language.
the first time that I heard you say the sentence, Jackson, I didn't completely follow. I think I got a little bit lost because vinner. but then once you said it the second time, then it made perfect sense. Vinur með vangi hefur þann óvin flýgur. And I think also this might be, the trickiest out of all these because
Danish,
it's very sort of, like you said,
he's got something
proverbial or poetic in its structure. A friend with wings has the enemy that flies.
What?
It's the direct translation that I come up with.
Yeah. So, and by the way, that's interesting that you said that when I was saying it, you didn't catch Vinur, because I would say Vinur in modern Icelandic. Here, I was actually sort of trying in these sentences to pronounce F's as regular labiodental fricatives, the, but I was trying to give a little bit more of a bilabial V, where it's spelled V, because at some point there was a difference in the Old Norse period. So maybe it was my more bilabial V sound, like Vinur.
I think what trips me up is the fact that Vinur, V-I-N-U-R, and then Vinnur, V-I-N-N-U-R.
Oh, sure, the verb, yeah.
Yeah, the verb.
He said the same word.
The noun, those things, they're close. So, if you don't nail the pronunciation 100%, and I think your pronunciation is very good, but then I just got tripped up a little bit, but then once you said it the second time, it made sense. So a friend with wings.
This is basically the same language.
Or has an enemy in that whom flies, that which flies.
And by the way, this is an interesting observation about
what does that mean, though?
The verb, right, works, right? Although in Old Norse, I would have said those two ends longer, more like vinnar, right? I would have held the two ends, because apparently there was some difference since they're so consistent about spelling it with two ends. Okay, Torleif.
Right. I was completely lost there. I was wrong in every sense. I said inner medvendigheder som ågen flyger. So I thought the vinur med was linked and switched, because vinur med means medvind. Medvind means the wind with you. So if you walk, you could say jag har medvind, which means I have a wind with me. So I switched that and said medvind. Then venge, I thought it was vara.
Yeah, it's a saying.
Hefur, I don't know. I thought it was befinner sig. Befinner sig means to exist or to be. So I thought the wind with you in the weather exists, and then the oven, I guess, and
the wind exists with you, within you. Until you break wind.
So part of what's interesting is that all these elements, like I said, are there in Danish or Norwegian. So you have some vowels that have gone like one rung down and some that have gone one rung up. So vinner is van, right? My friend. And then oven is uven, right? So the enemy. But it's interesting. Yeah, so it's interesting how like one vowel has gone one step down, one vowel has gone one step up, and that makes it just that much harder to understand.
Okay, which one do you think is closer, Danish or Norwegian? Which one is closer to Old Norse? Because Icelandic, he's in a league of his own. That's the same language right there.
If you said uven, I would know uven.
Yeah.
And if you said ven with an e, I would think. If you switch those two, I would probably have a better guess.
Yeah, so just those, just like I said, just one vowel going a little bit down, one vowel going a little bit up, and all of a sudden it's harder to understand, even though all the pieces are there in modern Norwegian or Danish.
That's tripping me off there.
Don't worry, guys. I'll learn Norwegian and I'll represent Norway in these videos. Because even though I don't have any knowledge of any Nordic languages, I can still comprehend a few things.
Kind of fun.
I'm kidding,
Yeah,
though.
it's a bit fun.
All respect
All
to
right,
the dude there.
Okay, so the first oral part, I was lost. I understood the word flyger, flies. The word med, the second word, but I was lost. All the rest there was nothing. And then you were discussing with Oscar, and I thought that maybe first I actually thought about the wind as well, as Torlaf did, wind in the beginning, right? But it kind of makes no sense. I couldn't find the verb. And if you don't find a verb, you're pretty lost. Now I can see the verb is clear, have, right? Have, even related to English. Uven is also, I figured it out when you talk to Oscar about it. Uven, we have that in Danish today. We use it very rarely. You can be uvenner with somebody. You are like not talking to that person because you disagreed on something, right? Uvenner. That's the only use we have today. Yeah, right. I'm lost, and it's crazy for me to see how Icelandic is almost the same, and Danish and Norwegian are so far away. But as Jackson has to say, we have the words venner, med, vinger, har, den, uven, som flyver. Is the van? Is that the article?
The Icelandic man has a
exactly
poker face. He's just staring into the camera.
That. But that's always used before relative clause.
It's like denne again, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So although den is from the extended version that really means this, so it's if I were to use the exact equivalence, I would say den uven. You wouldn't say it that way in Danish, but but den is actually from than. So
I just want to say, if you want to use dan, an adjective in the middle of dan, for example, dan gode vän, a good friend. We don't use dan without an adjective, so I guess.
But we do in Danish. We do in Danish. In relative sense, we do it. Den uven som flyver. We can't do that in Danish without the adjective.
Okay. And that's exactly what Old Norse is doing. Is it's using it in that relative sense, right? So that's lost in Norwegian. It's not really that common in modern Icelandic, but it's a prominent part of Old Norse syntax. So that's interesting. You know, there's three different streams that this language has followed in going into these three different modern languages.
We also have to remember, in modern languages, everything that is derived from its origin, like Latin, it tends to be more formal and more official. Not official, but what's the word I'm looking for? But formal. Like, for example, the difference between understand and comprehend, that type of thing. So when you're looking at these types of video, try to think as more chic as possible, and I think you guys can understand better.
Yeah, very interesting.
Norbert, what do you say to this?
Yeah, I think it was great. So what do you guys think? Do you have any overall thoughts about this whole experience? Jackson, what's your impression? Like, how did the guys do?
Yeah, I think this went as expected. I mean, it's like with any two languages that are related. When you first look at it or first hear it, it may seem more unfamiliar than when you have a second or a third look at it. And realize some of the correspondences between, say, unalike vowels at different stages of the language. Of course, with Icelandic, there's more structural similarity, and also, outside of some vowel differences and some things with double consonants, a lot of pronunciation similarity.
Is the guy in the middle Swedish? Is he the owner of the channel? Like, where did he come from?
But there's still little things where, Norwegian and Danish today have clear echoes of Old Norse, not just in the basic vocabulary, but in some little details of grammar. So for example, as Mick was pointing out, relative clauses in Danish work a little bit more like Old Norse than they do in Icelandic or Norwegian, right? Which you wouldn't necessarily expect, given that Icelandic is more structurally similar overall. But so each language kind of has a random assortment of inheritances, right? Just like any three kids of a parent, even though one kid looks a lot like the parent in a photograph.
He's from Tromsø, right?
The Icelandic kid looks almost to my point of view exactly the same.
Well, there's always a kid like that, right? You know, like
Yeah.
we've all met kids that look a lot like their parents and kids that don't look quite as much like them. So, you know, my sibling.
What looks alike is the Icelandic guy is wearing the same material as the thing behind the teacher there.
I'm black-haired, my sister's blonde, and my brother's red-haired, right? But
Hey,
but we're all clearly siblings.
really? How would you know?
Yeah.
Nice.
Adopted.
Guys, do you want to
Kidding.
add something?
I think, you know, the only thing I would add to, you know, Mick's point, and I totally, I get the frustration, is just that our, you know, our history and our, you know, the wealth and the treasure that we have in the language also comes or came at a great price, which was this sort of isolation for a very, very long time. So, you know, obviously it's not some sort of like, you know, something that we did that which it was just the fact that we've been isolated for such a long time, and Denmark and Norway and Sweden, they all live in this European continent where people are free to move, and so the languages have just changed more rapidly than Icelandic has.
Why would you think that? What could be an explanation why in this case, Danish and Norwegian and Swedish have changed so much and been simplified so much, and Icelandic has not? Is it?
He
I don't know.
He just said
Do you have an
that.
idea, Oscar or Jackson?
I think it's just, you know, from my perspective, it's simply the proximity you have to other countries that Iceland just doesn't have.
So you try to make your own language easier to be intelligible with other languages, or is that?
Yeah, the thing is, you borrow from other languages. It's not that you try to do something. It's just that you incorporate it, like in English, or even if let's compare American English with, you know, British English. People just started talking the way they wanted to. And you know what makes a language change. I mean, English is one of the languages that changes so much, and a lot of words they come and go, like you know, even slang. Sometimes it's outdated, and it changes. So when you hear something, you find it, oh, that's interesting. Like the word Google or like to tweet, you know, these type of words go into the dictionary. It's just the way languages work. So yeah, if you're close to other people in other countries, you're gonna obviously try to it gets imprinted into your vocabulary. And English itself has a lot of French words. So like chauffeur, you know, we use that, the chauffeur, fiance, stuff like that. It just gets incorporated into the language, and it's not even sometimes on purpose. It's just that languages change, and every year they change. And it's just how it goes. We loan, yeah, there's a lot of loan words.
I think there's a few things that are going on there. So part of it is with physical distance, there's less exposure to other language communities. But if you look at English before the Norman conquest, it's already changing in the centuries of Old English before it's really in contact with many other languages. Languages can change even if they don't have outside influences on them. And Icelandic has changed some, but I think part of what has kept Icelandic from changing as much as other languages is partially this really conscious literary tradition that always looked back at the Eddas and sagas, right? So for the last 8 centuries,
That's
people have
also
more or less
interesting.
read the same literature over time.
And you know, there are two groups of people: those who defend grammar and those who defend the spoken English or spoken language. So some people say that what dictates what is right and wrong. Some people protect grammar and say grammar is the absolute measurement of what is correct and wrong. And some people say no, it's the spoken language, what people are speaking and what people are saying and what people are using. That's what dictates what is and isn't accepted. So there's this fight between these two groups, the linguistics and the I think grammarists. Like these two different groups, they defend that. And I think what he's trying to say here is that in Iceland, they preserved what is right. Because there is this thing that some people correct you because grammar is like this and that. And then there are people who don't care. They just make up new words. And also when new cultures come in and they start speaking differently and, they incorporate and they say, this is my vernacular, like my type of speaking, my way of speaking. And then they just incorporate that into culture, and then nobody can actually correct that and say, no, that's not how you speak. This is how you speak. Because in different cultures, there are different ways of speaking. Even English, you get different types of accents and different types of dialects, and like Jamaica, for example, there are different words that they mix, and what I'm saying is it's just that they incorporate, and it's something that will change as culture also gets incorporated to the country. So I think what he's saying is that Iceland was kind of more of a correction basis, like, no, let's go back and correct it and stick to what is in the in the grammar rules. And also what he's saying is that they didn't have a lot of proximity also, so there's not a lot of influence from outside to change the language, which eventually happens.
That reinforces
If that
the
makes
standards
sense.
and the language of that literature, right? So even though little pronunciation things change, because you're always saying the language the same way on the page, you're always hearing it read out that way, it kind of keeps the language more conservative. There's a literary break on the continent where when the High Middle Ages come in, even after the conversion to Christianity, where the continental Scandinavian countries are much more integrated with the continental church, the literature of old centuries, right, the poems about the gods, the sagas, gets kind of suppressed in favor of that international literature, and there's no status for the spoken language. There's nothing for people to kind of emulate, right? You just talk like you talk because nobody writes it down. There's no status literature in it. It's just how you talk to other people on the farm. So there's not the same conscious effort to preserve it that I think you've seen in Iceland. That's probably too rambling, but Norbert can probably cut it down to 5 words.
No, it's super interesting. That's really cool. So maybe final words for Teraliv. Teraliv, was your dialect any help in this challenge? Because you speak a local dialect. Like, could you just remind us what's the name of the dialect?
Tromsø-dialect.
Tromsø.
Nordnorsk dialect. It's the northern Norway. So it's not only Tromsø, it's northern part of Norway. Norway is quite long, has very long coasts, shorter than Canada, but quite long. So half here of Norway. It's not that many people, but yeah, it didn't work at all. I think when I look back on some words here, like the oven and vinner, I couldn't use my dialect there. It didn't. There were some traits.
Anybody
there,
from
but it didn't
Tromsø
really
watching? Let me
help
know.
too much. But I envy Oscar a lot. You and Jackson became good friends here with your similarities, so it's good.
Well, we all, this is great too, because we all came into this as total strangers, and I had no idea how this would go. But this was kind of fun. I mean, it was different. There's no pressure. Nobody wins anything.
Yeah, why do they act
Norbert,
like it's
maybe
a
you should
competition?
mail us, little paper trophies.
It feels like they are a little bit shy, yes, awkward a little bit, but it feels like they're a little bit hurt, like, man, that Icelandic guy, he was cheating. it felt like there was like something in the air, like an elephant in the room there at the end, towards the end. But it was a nice video, very informative, very eye-opening, and very interesting. And it's a 43-minute long video, but it's very intriguing, very entertaining. And I didn't even feel like it was that long. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Thank you so much, Cecilia, for sending me this. And even though I don't speak any of the Nordic languages, I feel like English does have a foot in, but it's not enough for us to understand. I feel like the first one was easier than the other ones. I got a few words, so at least I didn't get a 0 out of it. So I'm pretty happy with the interpretation that the ones that I got right. But anyways, guys, that's pretty cool. I love these type of videos. Honestly, like I would love to make these type of videos as well. So I think that would be an interesting thing for me to create as well. I've been thinking of it for the past year or so. I just need to find a few ways that I can actually do that, because I love these type of sharing in culture. And I think they did a fantastic job here. And, the Zoom setup, everything was so good. Having these guests on, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you had a fun time. Hopefully you learned something new. And if you want to request a video just like Cecilia did, go over to Buy Me a Coffee. Link is in the description. Join us on Discord. This is a great community. You could see people who are chatting here. And we also do that occasionally on Discord. You can click over here to go to the request, or click over here to watch more educational videos. Here's the playlist. And I'll see you guys. Take care now. Bye-bye.